Welcome to Living a Life by Design. It's the journey back to you and living 365 days of purpose with your host, Esther Graham. Did you know your accountability and possibility is by design? God designed a phenomenal life for you, gave you the gift of choice. Esther helps empower you to discover and pursue the purpose that is already in you. Are you ready to look at yourself and see your future? Then get back to what is really important in life and get in alignment with your true self. Stay tuned to Living a Life by Design. Journey back to you and start living 365 days of purpose with your host, Esther Graham. It all starts now.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Life by Design with me, Dr. Esther Graham. I'm so super excited that you have chose, is that right? Yeah, to join me here today. And I am so excited because I have a wonderful guest, Alycia Huston, and she is, first, I just told her, I said, I don't do you justice in introducing you. So I'm going to have her reintroduce herself, but I just want you, my audience, to know that she is a powerhouse in leadership, in all types of leadership. But what I really love about her is that her focus is ensuring that women have can be empowered as leaders, so that we no longer have to fight for a seat at the table, that we can position ourselves to be at the head of the table. And so in our episode today, we're really discussing how can we as women continue to move forward in today's climate. So I'm excited to introduce to you Alycia Huston, the CEO of the Culture Crew. And Alycia, if you could just jump on and reintroduce yourself, and we'll get started on a powerful conversation.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you. I think that introduction was very warm and wonderful, but just a little bit more about me. I'm a woman in STEM, so I have a background in STEM. I love all things science. I'm the S in the STEM, sciences, and I'll say a little bit of T, a little technology. But I was a previous co-founder and CEO of a biopharma company and had the opportunity to have that business acquired and then stayed on as senior leadership with that organization, which was quite large, for about 3 years, and then transitioned out into the realm of what I do now. And that is cultivating leaders, cultivating cultures, and really transforming work environments to build trust. That's me.
That's her. That's a mouthful, right? So again, so super excited. So I'm going to just tell you where I am, which I think, Alycia, is so interesting that I'm here and this podcast is taking place. So everyone knows I've got several backgrounds. So one of my background is in education, specifically in early childhood education. And so today, or this weekend, I'm at a conference. It's early childhood. It's a child care business professional conference, and it's basically speaking to leaders. And so in that conference, all women, 2 men, my husband and another woman with her husband, but all women. And the conference's the CEO is Evelyn Knight, who is phenomenal and is doing. I mean, it's just so wonderful how she's teaching and just speaking leadership techniques. And as I sat there and I was listening, I said, oh, what a perfect podcast, because here I am looking at a room full of leaders, and she's speaking about how as leaders, especially as women, that we could up level, we could, in that field of early childhood. And I just began to think about you, Alycia, and then I began to think about what you do in terms of leadership.
Yes.
Your background, and how in your leadership it's really helping everyone. And so let's just begin our conversation today about, as women in leadership, what are we facing today? Let me just give you some statistics real fast. Some statistics shows, or research showed, that women has steadily made increase at less than a 5%, very low 5% from 2015 to now, but it's less than 5% in leadership. I'm speaking about executive leadership, right? And
Right.
so while I guess that's good, it's still not high enough. So what is it that we need to do? What is it that we can change? And so let's begin there.
Okay, so I want to add to that statistic. I told you all at the beginning, I am a scientist, so I love research, but I like research that is relevant. So 31% of incoming CEOs today are women. That's higher, to your point, than it's
Yes.
ever been. It's progress, however, it's still not parity.
Yeah.
We are now at a place that about 10% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. So we are progressing. So I want to definitely hit that point of what
Definitely
you said. We
progressing.
are absolutely progressing. And that's from the CEO turnover report in February of this year. So it's recent. Yes, it's recent data. However, there is so much more representation that is required in the realm of leadership with women. And one other thing that I want to share with you is that women, our prefrontal cortex, right here, the CEO functioning portion
Yes.
of the brain
Yeah.
is 20% larger. I'm just leaning in, so I'm telling you a little secret. It's 20% larger in women than in men. So your executive functioning in your brain as a woman is actually larger. That is why I truly believe we are physiologically, you hear me, that means our bodies are built to be leaders. And we, for some reason, have been pushed to the background in this realm of leadership as women. And I'm so excited that we are alive for a time such as this, that we get to stand on the forefront as women in leadership. So just wanted to kind of level set that right as we're talking about leadership. And then my acronym for leadership, the L is for listening. We have to listen as a leader. The E is for empathy. We have to be empathetic to what our people who make up the organizations are going through. The A is for accountability. You got to be accountable and take ownership in the realm of leadership. And the D is for discernment. Now we can understand, but we have to be able to discern what next steps are, right? As leaders in organizations, companies, even in our own homes. And the next E is for engagement. Now, nobody wants to be in a company where nobody is engaged, where people are just walking around mopey. So we've got to engage in opportunities. What's next? And the R is one of my favorite. Leaders are readers. And so women, we definitely are big readers. We seek to understand at a higher level. We have a level of empathy that is innate in us. And so I believe that some of these characteristics, Dr. Esther, to your question, have set us up maybe in this unnecessary and very inaccurate form of being too emotional when we are actually empathetic. So yes. So yeah, that's where I think some of the challenge has been. There's been a level of judgment. There's been a level of label that has been given to us. There's been a level of bias that has been given to us that women are so emotional, they can't lead, when that is not the case. We are actually very well equipped to lead.
We are. I was reading an article the other day, it was last week sometime, that where it spoke that leaders, and I believe it really speaks to what you're saying, even with your your acronym, and then talking about that the front
prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm.
So that women are better transformational leaders.
Yes.
And I thought, how powerful is that? And the reason why women are better transformational leaders is it speaks to exactly what you're saying right now. And I said, and so the question is then, why is it many that we don't even realize that about ourselves?
Right.
And we tend to sit back. And many times we step into a room and we don't feel as if we are a part of the room.
Right.
Or we feel as if what we have to say is not important or going to receive it. They're not going to expect it. And so we're about to take a quick break in just a minute. But when we return, I'd like for you to discuss with us, why is it then? What's in us?
Yes.
I know a lot of it is generational, it's culture, it's so many things.
Yes.
But why is it many times with everything that we have?
Yeah.
That's embedded in us. This is how we were created.
Yes.
Plain and simple.
Yes.
This is how God created us.
Yes.
We many times don't step up. We will sit back.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Not realizing that we've got something to say.
Yes.
And that we've got this gift, this skill, this knowledge, this ability that we were actually born with.
Yes, Dr. Esther.
To come out. So let's talk about that in just a few minutes. We're going to take a quick break and looking forward to the next part of a powerful conversation. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Life by Design podcast with my very special guest, Alycia Huston, the CEO of the Culture Crew. And so let me just add something here, y'all. If you see me looking to the side, I am, as I said earlier, I am out of town. I'm in a hotel room. I'm at a leadership conference, a super great leadership conference. And of course, we have a beautiful dog that travels with us. Yay, yay. And so I had to look over to tell him to stop making that noise. So that's just a sidebar. So when we left, we were talking about what happens. We're so gifted with so many things that we were created by our maker, our designer.
Yes.
And so what happens that we don't step to the front or at the head of the table, or when we walk into the room, we sit quietly, very invisible. What's happened?
So I will take that back to, I believe it is historical, as you alluded to prior to the break. It is historical, and especially as young women, we have been really told and positioned in a place to sit down, cross your legs, be quiet, only speak when spoken to. Your insight, your wisdom, your contribution is not required at this time or in this space, or we have been muted, shut down, gaslighted. We've dealt with microaggressions as women, those little nuanced comments, those little side comments out of the side of someone's mouth. The way that I have experienced it personally is being in a boardroom and made a suggestion, and then it was completely ignored, and then a male counterpart has made that same suggestion, and all of a sudden it's a great idea. And I'm so grateful that I had an ally in that room, and she was a senior leader, and she said, wait a minute, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to act like Alycia did not make that suggestion first. And so, those are some of the chinks in the armor that have happened over time that have allowed for us and have allowed for others to unfortunately create a level of insignificance when it comes to women's input. I mean, even to—
Can I give a caveat?
Yes.
Or if we don't do that, then we go to the other opposite and we become overly aggressive or overly assertive to where it's read as aggressive, and we want to be like men because and so it's like we go from one end of the spectrum to the other. We are seen as that, or sometimes we actually are that.
Right. The pendulum swing, to your point, right? Yes. Exactly. And so I believe that a lot of it has been historical. A lot of it has also been lived experiences for women that are of a certain age. I'm so grateful that we have young people that are very vocal now. They are really about action. They are about change. But let's be quite honest, in the world today, still in this moment, there are many baby boomers who are still in a level of leadership, and their thoughts are really of male dominance, of male supremacy, and that women really have nothing to say. I mean, we can even look culturally, where, I mean, we live in a global
Let's
universe.
be transparent. Let's be
Yes.
transparent.
And
Yeah.
so where women are not even allowed to speak in certain cultures, right? Where if they show their face, then that is a level of disrespect, because that's more being hidden, more being masked, right? It's still perpetual today in cultures that we experience. And
Go even deeper, Alycia.
yes,
Go even to race. I mean, this is a conversation for everyone,
yes,
and gender. So we, as women, right? If you're a woman of color,
yes,
then it's just a little bit harder
it is, right.
For us to be at that table. Yeah.
Yes. And that's called the double bind, being a woman and being a woman of color, because now you're bound in two ways with challenges. And so it is much more challenging. It is, I mean, we're seeing, unfortunately, lawsuits that have come to the table and have been won for racial discrimination, where white men with Black women leaders tell them, I don't need to listen to you, and then they're calling them racial slurs. And so it is challenging, one, as a woman. And then when you add on being a Black woman, an Asian woman, an Indian woman, a woman of color,
Yeah, a woman of color,
then it becomes even more challenging. And this is why, Dr. Esther, it is so imperative that when we do have someone that has opened the door for us, when we have busted the door open, or when we have made our own table, that we invite other women to that table, that we lift as we lead. That is our responsibility.
Yes, I
Yes.
love that. Lift as we lead, and
Yes.
invite other women of color, women,
Yes.
Caucasian women,
Yes.
women to the table, because we are the ones that's going to be responsible for making history.
Yes, yes, Dr. Esther. And I want to just touch on something that can be a real pain point for people. So sometimes we'll see things where someone is highlighting, even on LinkedIn, something about Black women or something about another culture. And sometimes I believe, and I've heard it even from my Caucasian friends, they feel a level of exclusivity. And so what I want to do is, because like you said, we're here to be transparent. We're here to have real dialogue. I want women who are my Caucasian sisters out there who sometimes feel excluded. I want them to understand that it's not purposeful. It's not to say they mean nothing and we mean everything. But what it has come from is this historical bind, right? This historical experience that we have, Asians, railroads, and Indians, they don't like the word Thanksgiving because they were slaughtered, and Black individuals, Black women, because of just slavery. And so it's not, and so there are real historical things that are in ourselves, in our generations. You said that, even generationally, that still have to be dealt with within cultures, within races, that if we are in a room of where there's mixed company, there are certain conversations that someone is not going to feel comfortable having. There are certain transparencies that cannot happen. So it's not that anyone's trying to exclude, it's really a space that we're trying to heal.
It is. It is a place. It's a place that we're trying to heal. And here's the other piece, especially as Black women, many times we have to be careful how we're saying something. And that's always in our heads, because we're always viewed by others as the angry Black woman.
Yes. Yes. And that's some of the rhetoric. You're right. Mm-hmm.
And I just remember a colleague of mine, she was really one of my mentees, who I never forget her calling me, and she was so upset, and she had to speak to one of her employees. This is in corporate America, about a situation. And that person just began to cry and say, well, you're yelling at me. But she wasn't. She was just talking, and I need to.
Yes.
And so, and the reason why she was able to do that and say that is because she already had the significant. She's an angry Black woman, and so I tell you something, and based on how you perceived it, it's based on how you perceived it. I'm now the angry Black woman.
Yes. And I want to share a story just very briefly too for myself when I was, after I had sold my company and I was at an all hands meeting, right? So it's all the leadership at a meeting and you're in kind of an auditorium like setting, you know how those are. And it's moving you into the new year, right? We come with some inspiration, we talk about the numbers, we talk about where the future forward, all of those things. And I remember there was a very profound speaker. And I remember just nodding and just being in such agreement. And I heard one of my Caucasian counterparts, she came up to me. Oh, you were very engaged, Alycia, in that. I said, what do you mean? Yes, you were nodding. And that was interesting. And I told her immediately right there, I said, so we have different backgrounds. I said, I'm a Black woman who was raised in church. I have a soulful spirit. I said, and so if something resonates with me, I may nod, I may say, mm-hmm. I said, so what I want, because she was alluding to the fact that it was disrespectful, that I'm supposed to sit there stoic and not move. Yeah. And I said, so our backgrounds are different. So I want to bring to your attention the bias that you have, that you're conveying to me, even in this conversation. I said, and this is where we have to be very careful. And so she was kind of taken aback. And she was a physician, and so she was kind of taken aback. And I just was like, interesting point of view. And these are the things that we deal with as women, even women to women, yes. Right? So we have to be very careful there as well, because that was a microaggression, right? And so it wasn't called that then, well, it wasn't brought to the forefront like that. But we have to also be careful as women in leadership that we are uplifting and that we are open to those dialogues when they occur. Yes.
And so therefore, here it is in our organizations, whether we're a CEO of an organization or if we are now leaders of our own organizations, we really have to set a certain type of culture. It is up to where the microaggressions and these different things, you won't see it as much. Why? Because we're now teaching.
Yes.
We're now teaching.
Yes.
Training.
Yes.
Speaking about.
Yes. Yes.
Leadership and the background and the culture. In other words, bringing it to the forefront. And I think that's really important as we're speaking of, really moving and building our table, being at the head of the table. Part of that is just not getting there. It's changing the culture.
That part.
Changing the culture. That's a little bit about what I'd like to talk about in our next segment is that how do we, if that's okay, how do we go about changing the culture? You said it by just that conversation. But now, because it's funny that you said that, my daughter, who is in her 3rd year of residency, changing the culture.
Yes.
Having the conversation that all patients have a right to top
healthcare.
I have to think about that for a minute. Yeah. And not just, and so, being accused of, oh, you favor the Black patients. No, I don't favor the Black patients. I'm for all patients, because patients, whether they're Latinos, they're African-Americans, they're Caucasian, they're Indian, whatever, Asian, whatever, all patients. And so we are facing this in every organization, in every genre of music, business, of everything. How do we go about in changing the culture? Before we go for a break, I just want to add one more thing. Remember that movie, What Men Think? With I remember but remember how she was viewed, that she had the great ideas, but they were always trying to keep her down. She was the only African-American woman, and then she was in a boardroom with all white men. And although she had great ideas, so she found where she had to be like a man.
Yes. She
had to assert. And I love that movie, because if you really begin to look at it, it goes through the different stages. And then finally, when they wouldn't accept her, and then she realized what she needed to fix about herself, she went out and she started her own business. The other part of the culture is that she also realized that some people that she thought was against her, another white male, really wasn't against her. He was really for her, but he was in an environment where he himself couldn't speak up for what he wanted. And there were parts of her where he said to her, but you alienated me. You alienated everyone. And she realized that. Long story short, when she went to start her business, he came with her.
He came.
So there's
Yes.
a lot that says about culture. When we come back, y'all, that's what we're going to talk about: culture and women in leadership in this environment. What can we do? How can we begin to change the culture
Yes.
of where we are? And by the way, this could even be in your home. Welcome back to a powerful conversation about women in leadership. How do you lead in this climate? How do you get to the head of the table? How do you use your voice? How do you shatter? How about this? How do you break the glass ceiling?
Yes.
So we're going to speak a little bit about culture. When we left Alycia, the question is, how do we now go about changing the culture, right? When we're in the boardroom, and how do we go about, even as women to women, supporting each other? Lift
as you lead.
As you lead. Yes. So let's talk about that just a bit.
You got it. So if you will recall, I said, you have to engage. If you are not engaged, nothing will change. Yeah. And we have to understand that your full participation is required, right? It's
full participation.
Full participation is required. It's a non-negotiable. You don't get to put a toe in and then just say, I'm participating. No, we've got to participate. We've got to be involved. We've got to be a part of the change conversation. And one of the best ways to first begin to understand what's going on in your culture before you change it is to ask questions and be open to feedback. So to create, to ask questions and open to the feedback, not shut it down, not say, oh, well, that's just stupid. That's from these people but they're all employees in your organization.
That's old school stuff.
Yes. So what I usually do is, if I'm going in for a culture conversation, because, a lot of times we as leaders, we think we know everything, right? Oh, this is the problem. This is what's happening. There's no engagement. People are leaving. I can't retain good talent. Well, when we do the anonymous survey, we get to the real nitty gritty.
That's right. That's right.
It's real. So that's where engagement, like being willing to engage, being open to the feedback. So you have to really want to change that culture. You have to really be committed, because it's going to get uncomfortable. It's going to kind of shine a light on some of those gaps. And sometimes we want to keep those buried in the sand and under the dirt, and not kind of open our underwear drawer.
Basically. And it's funny that you say that, because when you do that, it shines the light on you as the leader.
Yes.
Many times you have to go inward.
Yes.
You cannot fix the culture, the organization, until we see what's missing in us.
Right.
And when I refer to the movie, who is it with? What's her name? Henson. Taraji
P. Henson. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when she went out to start her own sports agency, but before that, she had to look in and say, ooh,
yes,
this is what this is what I contribute.
That's right.
And so you're right. Engagement, and part of that, the willingness to accept feedback.
Yes.
She had to be willing to accept the feedback while it hurt.
Yes.
Able to do. And so that's important, what you're saying. In order for us to change some things, we have to realize who we are and go inward. Fix us. Then we can.
And that's that emotional intelligence, that self-awareness piece, right? You have to be willing to be self-aware. And this is a muscle that is built. This is why EQ work is so important in organizations and in people. And so, you're saying, what does it take and how do we get ahead of it? So that's the first step, right? Like engaging, doing the work, and involving your people. And then women, it's found too that women are more likely to seek out and create professional and personal development experiences, right? So people will bring me into their organization because, so we've done that. We've illuminated the blind spots. we've taken accountability, right? We've taken accountability. We're self-aware. We're talking about a few things, and then we will co-create. Like, what does a leadership retreat look like for your people to change culture? What does a training look like, right? Where can we send even your people? Like, are there trainings that your people can go to so that they can begin to gather the wisdom? And then where people, so a lot of us have been to trainings. Oh, that was a great training. You get that big spiral book and you put it on the shelf.
That's
One
exactly
of the
what you
best
do.
things you can do with that is what I instituted at my organization. If you went to a training, if you went to a conference, you're going to come back and you're going to teach. You're going to teach what you learn, because that's how learning becomes embedded, right? And then it's exciting you're teaching to your colleagues, and now there's new conversations happening. There's new awarenesses, new insights. So it all comes down to, though, that first part, engaging.
And then implementation takes place.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Esther.
That buy-in, like, oh
yes.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes as leaders, we think it's all about us. And that's you've got to remove ego. It's never been about you. It's about your people. See, as leaders, sometimes we try to manage. We have to understand we need to lead leaders. We don't manage leaders.
That's good what you said. Tell me a little bit about the difference between management and leadership, because leaders lead. They don't manage, they lead. Yes. And you have to look and say, am I a manager or am I a leader?
Right.
So, since we've gone there, talk about that. Just
okay. So let's use examples, because examples will always illuminate the learning. Yeah. So if there was a company I worked with, and they dealt with reputation management, right? Oh. Yeah, that's a big thing. So one of their clients was in crises, right? And because he or she, we're just going to say he or she, had made some poor choices, and some of the stuff was on the internet. Gotcha, right? Check. And so they had to manage the crises. They had to mobilize. Everybody's working. Everybody's like, what do we do here? So we're all coming together. We're managing. Okay, you do this, you do that. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, you write this press release. Okay, you're in charge of shutting down all his socials, all of that, right? So that's managing. The managing is the doing. That's the doing. When you lead, you are inspiring change, right? So if there is a crisis in your organization and you're the leadership, but because the CEO wasn't involved in managing that crisis, there were debriefs happening, right? There was a different level of conversation, but there was no management. When you're leading, you are inspiring, you're motivating, you're directing, because you are the visionary, you're future focused. And so you're not in all the everyday minutia. There may be things you have to pop into. You got to read a report, offer your insight, your wisdom, do this here, and then you're done, because you're leading into the future. So leading inspires, leading brings people along, leading illuminates the pathway so that people can opt in, the vision, the mission. That's what leaders do. They're not doing all the work. Leading is what changes the world. Leading creates legacy and impact.
And so many times as a leader, you have to make that decision. Am I a leader?
Yes. Yes.
And what kind of leader am I? And looking inward and saying, is there something in me? Michael Jackson says, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. Ooh, yes. I'm asking him to make a change. Yes. What is it then as a leader in my organization that I need to change first within me?
Yes.
Before I can go and lead others.
That's right. That's right.
And I think sometimes that's the hardest, because it really brings us like, boom.
Ooh.
Like that.
Face to face with self.
Oh yeah. It's easy by the way, to be a manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even as a manager, Alycia, you still should have a level of leadership.
Exactly. There should still be capabilities and skill sets that you are exercising as a leader, right? And then you must empower the leadership of those you are leading. not micromanage, not tell them how to get to the answer all the time. We've got to allow for strategic thinking in our people, because they will show us things that we never even thought possible. So you're
Have
right.
to allow them to grow.
Yes, yes. And not think that we have the best wisdom and the best tool in the toolbox all the time. So we have to check our egos too as leaders.
Definitely. I
Yes.
mean, come on. I know I've been guilty of saying, no, I got the best, and all of us have been guilty of that.
Yes.
The good part about in leadership is that you recognize, okay, I know this is me.
Right.
So let me go ahead and make whatever change I need to make.
That's
so
right.
that we can move forward in the organization.
That's right. That's right.
So, that's good. So we've talked about culture. How can we bring that cultural change? How can we have that difficult conversation?
Yeah, right. Because leaders have to do that. We have to bring things to the forefront. We cannot allow things to fester. And that is, I think, one of the weaknesses sometimes in organizations. That's one of the biggest weaknesses I see. People do not have challenging conversations. And what you're doing is setting your people up to fail, and then the organization to fail and not reach certain, goals or KPIs or whatever has been set forth.
KPIs, y'all.
Key performance indicators. I'm sorry. I know,
Well,
right?
good.
Thank you.
There was another acronym, KPIs, key performance indicators. And then there was another acronym you used, and I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
And I know what it means. I can't even remember period, but and I meant to say, explain what that is, but yes. So as we're about to take another break, and what I would like for us coming back, that Alycia, if you could give, let's say, 3 steps to how someone could make as a leader.
Ooh, yeah.
That they could make, like, where they could see, these are the 3 steps you can take immediately.
You got it.
For yourself, or to change the culture of that organization, or begin doing that. And then I want you to share what's coming up for you and where people can reach you as well. And then I'll just close it off with what I share. So y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back in a few minutes. And we are back. We are back to the Life by Design podcast with my very special guest, Alycia Huston. And listen, we have been having a powerful conversation about women in leadership in the climate that we live in today, and what we should be doing, or what we could do. And so if you haven't been able to tune in from the beginning, you're just joining us, don't worry. You can always go back and listen to the entire podcast, and you want to, because it is so powerful. So Alycia, tell us about some steps that we can take as women in leadership, that we can take immediately to make some changes in ourselves, or in our organizations, in our companies, with our staff.
So one of the first things that I will say is sit down and listen. Invite a listening conversation where you are not talking. You are just asking the questions, and you are deeply listening. Sometimes it can be challenging because we are wired to respond. We want to respond, or if someone says something, we want to, I got to get mine in. I got to get mine in. That's not true. That's not true. I'm going to invite you. I'm going to challenge you, because it is a challenge to just quiet and just listen. So where I would say this is, have a conversation. Choose 3 key people in your organization, and 1 in your personal life. Maybe it's your husband, maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's a brother, maybe it's a child, and have questions that can just lend themselves to you learning more, even about how you're viewed as a leader in your home and a leader in the workplace.
I love that, because if you recall, Alycia and I, we have the same executive coach. And one of the things that we learned was that, looking at the relationship spectrum, you could ask the question, on a scale from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, where do you see that relationship in this area, right? And you can say leadership, you could say, and be very open to what they have to say. Listen, as what you've just said, listen, hear, and then at the end of everything, say, what is it that I need to do to go from whatever that step is? So if that person says it's at a 5, what is it that I need to do to take this from a 5 to a 6, not even to a 10? Let's go from a 5 to a 6. And so when you said that, it brought me back to that, because I use that, in relationships and different pieces. What is it that needs to happen?
Yes.
And be very open to what I hear, the feedback that I hear. I love what you just said, Alycia, is not just doing it in your job with your staff, your leadership, but also doing it in your home with your spouse or that uncle, but make sure it's someone that's close to you. That's really, and I bet listen, when that happens, they're shocked. Like, wait a minute. No, we're not going to tell you because you're going to get mad. No. I really want to know. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure. And so to that, remember your posture. Don't be like with a scowl on your face if they say something you don't want to hear. Yeah. Or your arms crossed and you're like, yeah. Really? That's what you think about me? So you
have an answer going on in your head.
We're good at that. We're good at that. Let's take ownership. Okay, I'll take ownership of that.
So the whole conversation. Oh no, you did not.
Right? So listen, see, this is real. See, this is real right here. What's
real?
It's very real. So so I said, I challenge you, because it is a challenge, right? To sit, listen, and then to absorb, to process. And then if you need to ask clarifying questions, do so. Not in I can't believe you said that. So what you're saying is, it's ask clarifying questions and learn to just temper yourself. You're going to get much further. Yeah.
Very good. Very wonderful, wonderful. I love it. So y'all, this is what you can take immediately and begin to work on that. And again, just be very open to what is being said, and if you need clarity, get clarity and temper yourself. And listen, I know I'm guilty. I have a whole conversation going on in my head, which then if that's happening, it's taking me out of what you're actually saying.
You are not present. Exactly.
Not present. So I have to, clear your head and listen. And even if you have to walk away at the end and be like, oh, wow, but then sit and take that self-check and say, okay, what is it I need to do?
Right. And I will also encourage you maybe to even record it, because your brain will begin to protect you and go into defense mode. Like, let's just be honest.
Let's be honest.
If it's something you don't want, and so record it and listen to it when you can process it. But continue, as Dr. Esther said, talk to yourself. Okay, Alycia, be present, because things will come in. So you just talk to yourself, be present. And it's okay to tell yourself, relax. It's okay to breathe, all of those things. So definitely deploy that. It will give you insight. Yes.
Love it, love it, love it. Now, Alycia, tell us about what's going on. What are you doing in the world, and how can people connect with you? Because guys, if you have a corporation, let me just give my own plug first, because I know the work that she does. I've seen the evidence. I have the evidence. And so if you have an organization, whether it's board, it's corporate, it's you're an entrepreneur, and you need to really set some things in place, then she's your person.
Thank you. And my wheelhouse is small and medium-sized businesses, because I am a small business owner. I've sold a small business. I understand all of the things that come in with small and medium-sized businesses. So I am that person that operates for small and medium-sized businesses. I absolutely love it. And you can find me on every channel: LinkedIn, Instagram. Go check out my reel today, guys, on Instagram. It is amazing. And on Facebook, under my name, Alycia Huston. You can see the spelling. It's a little different, but I'm different. So, of course, it's a little different.
Of course it's different, of course.
But so in this work that I do, I'm very focused on women in leadership. You heard me. Yes, I work with organizations, but there's another arm. And I am excited to be partnering with the amazing Dr. Esther right here, with an event that we have in Atlanta called Festa della Donna, and it's all about women standing in your leadership, developing, cultivating, networking, honoring, like creating more, creating that legacy we talked about. So I know that link will be provided. Definitely join us in Atlanta in July on the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. You do not want to miss that, with some great speakers. And I host an annual leadership retreat for women where we come together, we leave the country, okay? And we have amazing, amazing conversations, deep conversations. We laugh, we cry, we grow, we cultivate, and we create partnerships, and we create so much more together. So definitely just check me out. And I am excited to be in your ethos now. That's the name of my retreat, and to learn more about you as well.
Thank you so much. So you guys, Alycia Huston, make sure that you connect. And I can't wait. Both of us cannot wait to see you in July on the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd. You honestly do not want to miss it. We're going to be putting the information on the website. But if you know how to connect with me, if you need to connect, it's www.fddwomen.com. Go to Esther Graham, go to Festa della Donna. You can reach out and you'll find out more about our events. You can find out about Alycia, and just let's go. Let's make history together as powerful women coming together, supporting each other, lifting as we lead.
Yes.
Good to see you next time. God bless you. Take care. See you on the second Friday. Woohoo, y'all. The second Friday. This is June. No, I'll see you. Is this what day is this? This is the first. This is the second Friday.
This is June 9th.
The next time on the fourth Friday in June, where our special guest will be Dr. Omiaba Martin. See you then. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Living a Life by Design, the journey back to you, and living 365 days of purpose with host Esther Graham. Listen or watch live every second and fourth Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Discover that what is possible is already in you. God designed a phenomenal life for you. Esther helps you ignite that energy behind your personal journey for a deeper joy and peace, living 365 days of purpose. For more information on living a life by design, visit fddwomen.com.